So this is a very nervous moment for me because I'm a business guy and I've never had the honor of talking about the Internet of Food in front of such a distinguished group of people with deep technical knowledge. And it makes me kind of nervous, but let's dig into it. So this is all about the digital future of food. And my name is Johan Jörgensen. For those of you I haven't said hello to properly in person. And there's a profound question here. Is internet life itself, or is it death? And to me, this is a question I ponder basically every morning when I wake up and every night when I go to sleep. Because there's something happening these days, and it also it kind of belongs to you, this question, and it belongs to all of humanity. And let's take a deep look at food then. What is food? Food is roughly 20% of global GDP, or a staggering number, about 15 trillion US dollars per year. 40% of every man and woman on the planet works with food in one way or another. We all eat 3 times a day, so food is all around us, and it's actually running the planet. Without food, we would die. Without water, we would die too, but without food, for sure. And this is the way the food system would like us to see food. And it's interesting that we all have this almost religious attachment to food, that it should be something nice and colorful and healthy. And if you associate food with a picture, it's always, the farmer digging up dirt with his hand and soil through his fingers. Food doesn't look like that. This is the way food looks like. Food is the Death Star. It's killing the planet and everyone on it, slowly but very, very efficiently. The figure here, 3.5 trillion US, it's the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, their assessment of social and economic costs for malnutrition every year. For the first time in history, the cost for malnutrition, being undernourished, is less than being overnourished, wrongly nourished. So this is about a sum of 4% of global GDP. So every year we throw away 4% of global GDP by malnutrifying people. It's a staggering number as well. Everything about food is staggering. We need, however, to increase food production with 60% going to 2050, because we need to feed all these new people that come to planet Earth. It's interesting because if you look at food production, it is also 30% of all the greenhouse gases. So if you do food production in the way we currently do it until 2050, that means we have increased greenhouse gases by 18%, which is a horribly bad idea. It's also the fact that when you look at it, a third of all food is wasted, which means that we really have a strategic reserve out there of food, but we don't really distribute it evenly. So we can do a lot of things about food by organizing it properly, which of course requires data, and we'll get back to that later on. But food, again, is not just about waste and amounts. It's also how we feed people and the lost output out there. This is a picture drawn up by the World Economic Forum and Harvard University a few years ago, where they calculated lost output in trillions of US going forward to 2029. As you can see, it's a pretty steep curve of aggregating numbers. Close to 50 trillion US is what we have lost from 2011 to 2029. 50 trillion, just so you have a comparison, 80 trillion, that's the global GDP today. So to 2029, we're expected to lose almost the current GDP due to what's called the non-communicable diseases, the diseases we get from smoking or eating wrongly. And eating is the single most impactful thing happening in this graph here. So we're basically eating the planet to death, and we're eating it into no future at all. We're also moving people into cities. This is a picture of Shanghai with some, I think it's 20 million people. It's just one of many, many, many megapolises that we see out there. And something is fun, when you move people into cities, you also move them into services. And because the sheer density of people in a city enables you to produce or rather to serve food in a new way, in a service way. And of course, services are also all about data. So we have this old picture of us going to the shop, buying food, going home, cooking it for the family, sitting together around the table, enjoying food. Uh, that's not the way it looks like. You live in cities these days. Many cities these days are built with apartments without kitchens. Why do you want to have a kitchen when food is around you 24/7 down on the corner? Food is infrastructure. As infrastructure, it is governed by data. It's also new data, because this will be all about ourselves, right? We're quantifying ourselves at a staggering rate. So we will know a lot about ourselves in the future. And most of that will be knowledge about how we react to certain things we do, like exercise or eating things. I did a little experiment on this my own a year ago. I borrowed a biosensor, kind of a clunky one, from a company doing blood sugar levels, so glucose level sensors. It's basically a high-level sensor for diabetes patients, but it measures my blood sugar level, and every 5 minutes it sends data of that to my phone. And and you're supposed to be within these lines, of course. So I behaved one day, which is the graph on top, and I managed to stay within the lines by eating what I should eat: pulses, lentils, slow carbohydrates, proteins and stuff, vegetables. And then I started to experiment. So here, I went over to my local sushi shop and I got myself my nice lunch sushi. An hour later, suddenly my phone starts beeping with a noise I didn't recognize. And it's like, medicine, medicine, medicine. Because I was in a dangerous situation, because this is a diabetes sensor, right? So I was out of bounds. I needed to take my medication. I was like, what happened? I was kind of confused. Like, it eventually subsided a few hours later. I said, let me try something else. Let's have a chocolate, bar of chocolate, 100 grams, milk chocolate, produce this spike here. It's like nothing even comparable to sushi in this case. And I, of course, can understand when you look at it, it was like the bar of chocolate contains more fat, releases carbohydrates in a slower way. Of course, I don't get the same type of spike as with a white sugary rice, which metabolizes horribly bad, at least in my liver. Eventually, a little later here that day, in the night when I was sleeping, my phone started to beep again. Because what happens when you spike in your carbohydrates is that it crashes a few hours later. And when you realize, when you see this curve on how you're affected by what you're eating, it profoundly disturbs you. And I haven't eaten sushi since then. And because if I continue to do this, if I continue to follow this curve day in and day out, I will have diabetes. This is my destiny, unless I change. And you can say that, yeah, we all know that, but you don't know until you see the data. It's really affecting you. This here is banana. So banana is worse to me than chocolate. And we all have our individual curves that tells us how we react to stuff that we put in our bodies, or how we react to exercise, or how we react to a combination of exercise, food, and medication. So the quantified self is a powerful tool that all will have in the future. And of course, biosensors will be in our watches, in our clothes and everywhere. And we'll measure predominantly the stuff that we're putting into our bodies through food. Now, that means that data is the new brand, and we start pulling the stuff that we're eating towards ourselves. That's more powerful than the stuff that's currently being pushed to us by the industrial food system. It's a kind of interesting change. If data is the new brand, what is then the old brand? It's nothing. to be honest. Because a brand is nothing unless it can tell you something that you didn't know or give you some idea what it is that you didn't know. But if data is the new brand, what happens then? I could argue that food is just data. Food is nothing else than data. And this is an interesting shift in your mindset. When you start thinking, well, food, we have such a close, tight attachment to the food objects that we have on our plates or that we buy in our stores. But if you do the thought leap and say that food is just data, what do you see then? You see that, well, a tomato might be a round bowl full with predominantly water and some nutritions, but it could also be filled with a lot of other things as well, right? If I want to have my vitamin C, for instance, do I need to have it from the tomato? Kind of depends on the context I'm in. If I'm only having tomatoes, perhaps a tomato will provide me with that. But if I live in a service environment in a city where I measure myself and I can get that nutritional need satisfied by many things, is a tomato really interesting in this concept? No, not without its data. So without data, no food. And if you live in an urban, connected environment, if you don't have data around your food object, how the hell are you going to plug it in to this online society that we're living in? And of course, you'd like to know more than the nutritional components and the price of that tomato. You'd want to know, is it good labor conditions in this tomato? What about the animal welfare in this chicken? Or what type of energy produced this food? All those things we don't see today. So we cannot make food decisions based on animal welfare or labor conditions. The only thing we can do is to make decisions based on price, essentially. And that's because the global industrial food system that we have around us has chosen that as the main predominant factor for us. Price is, of course, super important. There are also other things that are important when it comes to food. This means that man will meet food, not in the food hall in the future, but in the computer center. This is where we will crunch the two largest data sets on the planet. Human data, personal data, and data around the single largest activity that we participate in, which is the production of food. Now, this of course leads to a couple of new business models out there. Alexa, I'm hungry. Bring me food. And Alexa will bring you food based on your data. It might be something as interesting and intriguing as haggis. Some people actually want haggis and then like it. How many of you have had haggis? How many of you liked haggis? You actually did? Haggis, of course, is this horrible Scottish national dish that is a stuffed cow stomach that you stuff basically with other cow stomachs. But some people do like it. Some people do like it and want it, right? And if you have that data around you, I'm a haggis eater, then of course Amazon will know that and will bring you haggis for your birthday. And this is interesting because data also enables you not just to give you the physical experiences of food, but also the digital experiences of food. This is something I myself have been involved in some tests of. You can start simulating food. So if you have a piece of tofu and you put that into the mouth of a research subject and you show him or her something else, they're at odds identifying that it's tofu. They think it's like fish, chicken, cheese, whatever basically you project them to think it is. And this is, I think, profoundly interesting because food essentially happens not on your tongue, but in your brain. And you can start messing with your brain in kind of a significant way through data. Again, what is food in a connected, online, data-driven society? You could say that this is a horrible, terrible future, or you could say it's democracy of food, because suddenly everyone can have the experience of a lobster tail with a truffle risotto, even though it's perhaps porridge and tofu. But what is it that you're looking for in food? Is it the food itself, or is it the experience that food gives you? Matrix, of course. This is all Matrix. Now, Matrix was, of course, right in this sense, and we're just a few years away from this happening big time. And we're already seeing this experimentation happening in the form of music, lighting in restaurants, what type of colors the plates that you serve food on, etc. So we're starting to mess with people's brains when it comes to food already. Of course, this has a profound effect regarding the value of reorganizing. Hotels.com. Now I don't know what type of system we used to book this hotel. Perhaps it was a manual telephone. I don't know. Most often it's like things like hotels.com or bookings.com. And they charge you something, or the hotel owner something like 10 and 30% in commission for this booking. 10% if it's a straight booking. 30% if they can pre-order hotel rooms and then resell them to people on the basis of superior information of customer patterns. So 10 to 30% is at least what's happening and what's evaporating into these digital organizing layers around physical objects such as hotel rooms or food. Now, 10 to 30% of 20% of global GDP is 2 to 6% of global GDP. It's about the size of the global energy system, which means all oil, all gas, all nuclear, all solar, all wind, all hydropower, whatever have you. It's an enormous sector. And of course, the world has seen this. So the world of tech has started to see food as something equivalent to the iPhone moment. A few years ago, I said that food and digital, it's like Internet 95, hasn't happened yet. You can see the first, the first small little waves breaking. Nowadays, I think that food is probably Internet 2005. And next year, I probably say that food, it's the Internet 2020. They've caught up. Not the food sector, mind you, but the tech sector has caught up around food and is starting to produce new solutions around it. It's not just restaurant delivery apps. It's far, far more profound than that. Which means that we're actually about to meet our new permanent favorites here. The big companies currently pushing into the world of food from the data-centric viewpoint will become our new permanent favorites, and they will be far, far larger and far, far more dangerous than the ones we have today. Because through food, you can nudge people to eat basically whatever you want people to eat. And that means you essentially take control of their biological existences, because we are what we eat. So the ones controlling what we eat control us. And it's kind of a terrible prospect. And food is also, through this system of digital tech, and we start weaving those layers around food, moving from what is predominantly a local system today, where food is to 80% a local thing, to a global thing. Data is global. This will be Facebook, this will be Amazon, this will be all these big tech giants out there, or a couple of new ones that we don't know of yet. But they will be global. They will put this global tech data layer onto the global world food system, and they will be the controlling masters of this system. So we're about to enter into another silo, and this time a silo that is 30 times as large as advertising that has constructed the internet or fueled the internet as we know it today. If you look at the traditional value chain of food, it looks something like this. You go from the supplier to the producer to the distributor, and then the logistics people, the retailer, the store, and the customer in some sort of a traditional value chain. But what happens if there's a data value chain on top of that? That enables you to not just send products through a value chain, or products with its data in the value chain, because currently the only data, if there is any data in this value chain at all, it's being handed over from silo to silo to silo to silo, all the way to the consumer. And the data is always controlled by someone, controlled by an entity out there that can do whatever they want with the data. And the most common thing they do with the data is not to show it to others. But what if you could abstract this data? What if you could take it out from the food object, put it into another layer, and perhaps build new business models around it? What if the farmer who doesn't only grow tomatoes, he or she also grows actually data around the tomato? How is that tomato grown? What type of labor conditions went into it? What type of fertilizer did we use, etc., etc.? Is it organic at all, right? And why should that farmer sell his or her products alongside the data? Why don't you just sell the product and then you sell the data straight to the end user if they want to have that data? Is it in the future so that a farmer's most valuable output is not the food product, but the data around the food product? What if someone who actually can do something or produce, a lasagna, say, someone who refines food objects, how come they only refine the lasagna? How come they don't also work with new business models based around data in order to, again, release data to the consumer so they know what they ate, what they were fed? And I think when it comes to things in the future where I want to have specific amounts of energy into my body, depending on how I feel that day, if I'm going to exercise something else, then I, of course, want to know what to stuff myself with. So the people, again, doing processing of food or building this lasagna out of products, they, of course, need to have that data in order to match it with my own personal data. Again, is it the data, perhaps, that they're selling that's the most valuable part of it? Now, this all, of course, leads to the question, how do we do network design around this? Because the world of food will change in the fundamental ways around data. And the only thing we know, me and my friends in the chapter of Internet of Food realized a few years ago, is that if we let the current internet system drive the development for digital food, we will end up with these permanent favorites, but they will be bigger and meaner than the ones we currently have. And it potentially has a detrimental effect on everyone on the planet, because if Jeff Bezos wants us to eat more sugar because he wants to have a higher profit, we will eat more sugar. That's for sure. Can we build something else then that frees people along all this value chain of food? How could we do that? Could we actually here provide some sort of a network design feature or a protocol that facilitates digital aspects of food so that we can achieve what we want to achieve with food, which is a healthy and sustainable planet for everyone on it? And perhaps use data in this case to save the planet and ourselves a little. How would we do that? We started out by saying, yeah, probably we need to blockchain, yada, yada, yada. And then we realized, oh, there are a lot of problems with blockchain. Is that another silo? And then we thought, identifiers, could we do identifiers? And we said, oh, perhaps, what if we put a UUID on every grain of rice out there? Would that be a good thing to do? Could it potentially be done so we have food data in an open, transparent, free way? Yeah, it could possibly be done. Do we have any problems with that? Yeah, probably a lot of problems with that. So how do we go about? And then we said, yeah, let's first start with having this policy discussion around food, trying to identify the potential problems and also the potential opportunities around food. And then we realized another thing, that is, food is such an enormously large object out there. So if you would like to think in terms of a new internet, perhaps here we have the wrench that is large enough to pull the internet back from direction in which it has been heading. Because I think, and this also reflects some of the comments I made yesterday, some of the comments made by other people here as well, that we're actually heading in the wrong direction with the internet. It is creating permanent favorites. It is creating a new form of internet. We're back to the walled gardens again, where we just build the country roads between those walled gardens. They are fancy and glitzy and have all their own highways in them. But could food be this object that could pull the internet back and push it in a new direction? To us, food is that object out there that needs to have its own rules. We cannot push it into the internet system that we have today. It's impossible, and we all lose. So we need to devise something around the digital aspects of food that is something that we don't have today, but will need to facilitate this open, free internet out there, the open, free data around food. So that is what we're trying to do in this chapter. We of course suck at running organizations, so the only thing we can produce right now is actually ideas and thoughts around this. What we need to have, though, is more thoughts around this, and eventually some sort of a joint direction from not just us, but everyone who's dealing with the future of the internet, to push the internet in a direction where food becomes the driver of people and planet that we want it to be. So that's basically my presentation of internet and food. Go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, it was a great presentation. I mean, I was when I heard for the first time about the special interest group, I was wondering, what is this? So you helped us to understand what is this. But first a comment and then a contribution. I looked at the list of members of the SIG, and I think you have a serious credibility problem if you don't include something like the Italian chapter, French chapter, or Spanish chapter, because you cannot have a bunch of Swedish or Nordic people talking about food. So
no. We don't talk about food, we talk about data, right? So
yeah. No, but I mean, the same. I mean, at least you need some with a serious background. Then about the, you mentioned the blockchain issue and so on. Of course, I'm working on blockchain and traceability, and there is an interesting contribution. I mean, we can discuss it later on a bilateral basis. But we found that the key issue is the digital twin problem. The digital twin is, okay, I can have a perfect traceability history about this product, but everything is based on the QR code or the barcode that is stuck into the good itself. And of course, I can take that label or make a copy and put it somewhere else. So I will have perfect digital data, but that apply to a different product. So this is the digital twin. What we are working on is to include in the blockchain a digital fingerprint of the product, so that you can compare later on during the process the digital fingerprint and make sure that this is the same product. I mean, it's not a digital twin. Of course, this is a very complex issue because the composition of the product change with time. The tomato you mentioned will ripe during the process, so the digital fingerprint will change, but artificial intelligence can help us to understand the variable we may have, and if if the fingerprint is within the variable, then we can accept it. So maybe this is the part where.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, like, what is a so one of the things we looked at pretty early on is the fact that we have some digital systems out there, like the barcodes, for instance, and those are being handed out. They're relatively cheap to get, but they're super expensive if you're a smallholder farmer out there, which means that a smallholder farmer can never ever get into the digital system of today because it's too expensive, especially if you're going to put a barcode on individual objects. Barcodes today are designed for an industrial system where you produce 1 million boxes of pasta, for instance, and you could put the same barcode on it. So it's a product here. This system, the current industrial system, is not realized as a individual, which it is, right? A pig is an individual. A tomato is an individual. So probably, I think you're right. And the question is, what is that identifier? Is it DNA? Probably around those lines.
We are working with magnetic resonance and how it's called? I mean, the spectrographic image you can get is the easiest thing and cheapest.
Yeah, no. As back to your question regarding the French and Italian and Spanish chapters out there, and this is, again, what we say is that we're good at ideas. We suck at running chapters. So the ones sitting on the board and running this, it's myself. I'm 150% involved in something called Sweden Food Tech, which is running a company in Sweden pushing the food system forward. It's Patrick Feldström that you know, and he's not exactly out of work. We have a third one called Michael Down, who's a management consulting sitting in Brussels. So this is but you're to the point. You're to the point. How can, if this is a good idea, I'm like, this could be a good idea, it could be a horrible idea to run something called the Internet Food Chapter. If it's a good idea, then we need help in order to push it out to the communities out there, because we're really not good at that. And that, of course, includes the Italian, French, and Spanish Greek chapters, all chapters out there.
Yeah, may I just add something to that? So just to put this a bit into perspective. So we have the chapters that are geographic and they have a geographic scope. And we do have the special interest groups that are global in their nature. And you can actually all help them to make them more global. So everybody, all chapter members or individual members can actually join a special interest group to help them become more global. Special interest groups are still fairly new again with the Internet Society. We reintroduced them a few years back. So they usually come out of initiative from somewhere, and we're trying hard to make them more global again. And this is an opportunity for all of you, if you're fascinated by this topic, to join the SIG and make them more global again.
I have a question. Well, they are full of subliminal message in your presentation. I just know for more than 10 minutes I want to eat a tomato. I don't know why, but there must be something about that. You are saying that it might pull or push the internet in a new direction. I wanted to hear you elaborate a little bit on this.
Okay.
How do you see this?
Okay, so I think by network design, you end up in a situation. And I think we've ended up in this situation with Facebook and Google and all, because we constructed it in a special way. We weren't careful enough to push data out to the nodes of the network and make sure that data resides somewhere where it's not just captured by a central warehouse. And I'm just pointing in direction what will happen, because the internet is still new, right? And what happens is that we'll digitize first the stuff that we can easily digitize. And search, financials, etc. And if the system that we build leads in direction of big, huge silos, it's the wrong system. Especially when it comes to food, because then we can see the direct effects on humanity and our biological existences. And it's a horrible prospect. So when I put the picture of death up there, it's really because I believe that if we continue to do it the way we're currently doing it, we will end up in that silo and death will reign on the planet. But if we could build a network instead that pushes data out to the nodes of it, control is taken away from the silo, then perhaps we can arrive at a nice, bright future, not just for food, but for all aspects digital. And of course, if you want to do that, you want to have a big, strong fellow that can help pull the internet back and out in another direction. And we say, well, food is the largest thing on the planet. Why don't we use it?
Just quickly to the question, because I've been told that we're running out of time. So starting with you, and then we will try to stop. Thank you.
Yes, I will say very quickly, I think this is a very techno-solutionist approach. I mean, you didn't include in your saving the planet any human action. You just put the data, and I think in addition to Italians and Greek cooks, you would need people that know about food, no? Because putting the data I think will not save any condition. And because I'm from the Swiss chapter, I want to say that people to address the problem of sustainability, do other things like creating organizations that grow their own food close to the cities, eating all together, supporting each other in changing their diet. I think having an algorithmic center where it will, for good or for bad, try to give the right solution to our food culture would not be what we need.
It's okay. Yeah, it's yeah. My presentations can go for hours and hours, and of course that is a question that we've been discussing as well. In this room specifically, we're talking about data, so that's why we're talking about data here.
No, and I wanted to make exactly the same content as the Internet of That. I think it's very dangerous to say that it will be all of us like this. I mean, to make these statements of inevitability that we will. I mean, we need to have diversity at every layer, and we should not assume a world that everybody is connected. Everybody will for sure be hooked to their smartphone and ask for food from their devices. I mean, we should imagine a world that there are options for difference at every layer, also at the way we live.
I would love that to happen,
Well,
but I don't see it.
Thank you so much for this interesting presentation. In my day job, I work for an internet fund, and we're funding already food projects. Can I connect them to you?
Sure, please do.
Okay, because they fit in your vision at the moment. So that's I will do that.
Please.
I'm interested to know how would because this is based on food as we know it, but let's say when GMO comes, business models change. Some even say that we can find food in pills, you know, so how these things intercept the business models that you currently presented. I think that's something to think about and to just include it, just to be more persuasive in the, or not persuasive, just to form our ideas better how we can contribute as a chapter to form a novel business model, because this will require novel business models.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think what we need to do is to stop seeing food as food objects and start seeing food as data. And when you start seeing food as data, there's a mind shift. And you're absolutely right. There will be
regardless, actually, whether it's GMO, whether it's peel, whether you're right.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tanya. Well, and thank you for making this comment, actually. I believe I would love to leverage what you just said with the entire community. So if you agree, I would love to organize with my colleagues something where you could make the same presentation, but to a wider audience, including other chapters, because I believe it's fantastic. So another round of applause for our friends. Thank you very much.